Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Suite podcast sponsored by the Salon Hub. I'm your host, Steve Cassano, as always, and today we have a special treat on the pod. We have Hunter Donia, or Hair by Hunty, on Instagram. For those of you who know Hunter, he's an incredible stylist, coach, and influencer, and we get to talk to him about his beginnings in the industry as a teenager in a vocational school, how he's used education to enable his growth year over year to the point where now he is coaching tons of stylists across the country, and he's still in his 20s. We also get to talk about how he's been able to introduce technology into his business so that it protects his time, but then also enables him to do more with his space outside of just client service. This podcast is filled with amazing nuggets of knowledge. Hunter really goes off and gives you some of the dirty details and really great tips and tricks, so you're not going to want to miss it. So without any further ado, here is Hunter Donia. All right. Well, being in person is kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. I haven't done an in-person podcast yet. Have you?
I don't remember. Yes, I have. I've done one with Hairdustry, like with Corey and Tony.
Yeah.
We were at Premiere Orlando and they were interviewing Ashley Norman and they asked me to like sit in on the interview and I was like, yes, please. I am obsessed with her. Like, and she was so kind and cool, like behind the scenes. Like she like was really interested in what I had going on. And she was like, oh my God, like let me follow you. And she was like, if I can support you in any way, let me know. And the things that she said on that podcast interview were so profound. And I'm just like, this woman is just badass. It was truly an honor.
She's on a different level.
No, literally.
Yeah. No, it's great to actually talk in person.
Yes.
It's what a novel idea post-pandemic. Right?
Right?
No, I was actually thinking about it in like before we got here, and I was like, oh man, I hope it's not awkward. And then it made me think, working in a studio by yourself, right? I mean, I know you've had an assistant in the past, but working one-on-one in a room, you and a client, I want to know what's the most awkward situation you've been in
Most awkward
while
situation.
that someone was in the chair and you're just sitting there like, I can't escape. I'm in my own box of my own making. And they can't leave.
Okay, so normally I actually really struggle in podcast interviews when people ask me for stories because my brain just like automatically goes blank. But there is this moment that I will not forget. So
perfect.
So I had recently, it was like literally like the first 2 weeks that I moved from a suite without windows to a suite with like 12-foot ceilings and like these literally 12-foot windows. It was huge and gorgeous. Wow. It was beautiful. And I had one of my clients with me, again, like my maybe like first or second week that I was there. And it was in like a shopping center that had crosswalks and like there was apartments that were nearby. So people were like walking around casually a lot of the time. And these two men like walked up to my window and like knocked on my window and were like pointing at their hair, like, and like at like kind of like gesturing like, hey, like, can you cut my hair? Yeah. And I kind of was just like laughing and like saying no, like I was gesturing no, but they like weren't leaving. So I like pointed to like the front door so I could like go and like meet them up front. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Ashley. Like, please just like sit here for just a moment. I'm just gonna like, I'll be right back. And she was like laughing too. Like she obviously like was cool about it. She like saw what they were doing. Yeah. And so I went up to the front and these guys like did not speak English at all. They were so nice, but it was really difficult to like communicate with them. No. And they were asking for like these crazy haircuts and I was just like, yeah, like I can't take you right now, unfortunately, but like go to my website and there you go. And it was just a very awkward experience. Did they book? No, they never. I was gonna say. Never actually inquired with me.
That would have been an experience.
I mean, they were nice. Like I would have done it, but I mean, particularly at this point in my career, especially if I ever have a dude ask me like if I can do their hair for them, I'm like, yeah, I can do it, but you probably just want to go to a barber because like that's not my specialty. Like I could do it and I can get away with it, but a barber can do much better, probably for a lot cheaper. So like go with somebody else.
Kudos to you for getting a walk-in in a suite. Like,
I know.
Like, yikes.
No, for real. I was like, well, and I think that was actually the first time that I actually experienced that type of inquiry being within a suite. Like I remember at the first suite I was at, maybe there would be like a lady walking around like peeking into salon suites and being like, hey, like, is there anybody I can see? But that was like the first time it was like, hey, like you. And it was like through the window, like while I was with the client.
Let me knock. You don't got a door, but you got a window, and I'm gonna find a way. Right?
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's so funny.
I actually really miss, particularly for the suite franchise that I was in, or like the building, that specific location. um I opened up my salon suite when quarantine lifted in Pennsylvania. So back then, that was when they locked the doors, and they kept the doors locked for a fair bit of time after we opened up.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved that like no random person could just walk into the door. I felt very safe and secure. And then I also really loved the fact that my clients couldn't just come up to my suite. And that actually led me to be able to start some of the systems that I teach today.
Yeah.
Like I just don't love it when I have like a client who's like sitting outside this like small little intimate area that I'm responsible for, and I'm still with a client. I'm like still finishing up with them. I also have my clients like fill out this like day of appointment form before they walk into the door. So that way, like I can see what they want to drink that day and what music preference they want. And so that way I can get the place set up before they actually walk in. So I was like, lock those doors, keep these people out. And then eventually the other, they polled all of the other tenants there, other stylists. And they were like, no, we want the doors unlocked now. And I was like, no.
How am I supposed to get people in their cars now? Yeah.
No, literally.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. I've been in, so when I used to take photos for social media for salon suites, multiple times there's been people who have just like walked in and they knock on everyone's door, like with their kid, like pulling them along, be like, can you cut his hair? Can you cut his hair? Can you cut it? Holy smokes, this is not the avenue.
No.
Once you get to like door 5, why are you still going to door 9?
For
like,
real.
I understand, but this is not the avenue for you. It's just kind of silly.
And particularly when like there's probably so many other like traditional salon models around that like would happily take walk-ins as well too. Super fascinating. Like, why are you going into that space? And I mean, even in our like shopping center, like there was a barbershop right across the street too.
Yeah, that's very
sure
interesting.
That's a common thing for most places.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. Well, anyway, I want to roll it back.
Okay,
before we
roll it back. Sorry,
before we get to that,
so.
I had to ask because it was like top of mind.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the beginning, right? We're not talking about birth, but we are talking about your career. I want to know where you kind of got the impetus or the really interest in the beauty space. Now, obviously you focus in hair, but that doesn't mean that you can only focus in hair. So I kind of want to hear about, maybe in your younger years and when you started to realize that you are interested in this, like what were the trigger points for you? What were the aha moments that kind of led you down this path?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of things that led me down to becoming a hairstylist, and doing what I'm doing today. But the main reason I think, and at the time I didn't really realize it, but it was just a very much like natural flow into it, and the universe was like pushing me in that direction. So I like came out of the closet when I was in like 7th grade, and very young, weird age to come out, but I was very privileged to be able to do so in a kind of comfortable way. Of course, like that came with all the crap that it comes with normally.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like figuring out my identity when it came to how I present myself, as one does when they're in middle school. And
puberty will do that to you.
Very much so, especially middle school. And so I started to play around with like coloring my hair and wearing makeup and like wearing more like feminine clothes and just like expressing myself in those different ways. And my teachers at school would always joke like, oh, what hair color is Hunter going to come in with today? Because I would change it like every week. I'd be like box bleaching it and then like putting like splat on top of it. It was not a cute look, but I found so much joy in experimenting with those things. And I thought it was so cool that like I was able to feel like fully myself and really express who I was on the inside, on the outside with those methods of beauty, right? And makeup was actually really like what I really loved at the time. Although, I like the hair as well too. I thought it was fun. And I had kind of a difficult time with school. I have ADHD. And although I had been diagnosed from a very young age, it was still really difficult for me to stay focused and to be motivated to do all the things that I had to do to stay ahead. I didn't have a lot of spaces where I really fit in very often. I was like in chess club. And I
Really?
Yeah, I was in chess club.
I would not have pegged you for a chess.
No, I competitively played chess for a while, actually.
What?
Yeah, and
That's
I got
crazy. Were you ranked
as a kid? Yes. Could not tell you what the rankings were anymore. I think like 32, like in my thing in Pennsylvania or something like that.
Hey, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it was a moment. It was a moment in time, and I love chess to this day. I wish that like I need to like get out of my comfort zone, and I need to join like an adult league in Philly. Like I need to do that.
All right, we might have to do a podcast where we play while we podcast.
That would be so much
You
fun.
can just destroy me. I'm like trying to think of questions. I think that would be really fun.
So that was like the only place where I kind of felt like I fit in, and just being like the gay little boy that I was and just like trying to navigate the space. And so I remember finding out that my high school had a cosmetology vocational program. And I was like, maybe this is somewhere where I can like really thrive because it's something that I'm interested in and I'm already like really enjoying it. It's an opportunity for me to gift the same gifts that I give myself to other people of like helping them express themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so I started cosmetology school while I was in high school when I was 15, my sophomore year. And I just remember literally like the first day walking into that room and like meeting the other people within the class and just like starting like the learning of it all and just being like, I belong here. Like, this is my home. Yeah. This is where I'm supposed to be right now. And it was the first place that I truly actually felt like I fit into the space. And I was not just accepted, but celebrated for who I was and how I expressed myself. And I fell in love with it since then. And so I actually got a job as a general assistant in a salon when I was 16. My first day was my 16th birthday. And
wow, just like as soon as you're legal to work,
literally, yes, which was also miraculous because I was walking in there looking absolutely insane, and it was a very like classic bougie salon, like a high-end salon, and I cannot believe they took a chance on me. Thank goodness they did. And I got my cosmetology license before graduating high school.
Yeah,
very privileged to have been able to have a vocational program. And I wish that the vocational programs weren't as stigmatized. I wish that they were more widely available in most places, because truly like it set me up for so much success. And I would not be where I am today without that, for sure. And then I was on the floor working when I was 18. And I was starting making money immediately. And that brought me to then actually becoming a brand educator when I was 19. My manager came up to, I know, it was so crazy.
For who?
For Euphora.
Whoa.
So I started out with L'Oreal Pro. I went through like their like educator training, and my manager,
at 19?
Yes, at 19. It was crazy.
I'm just making sure we're painting the picture, right? Like I'm imagining like a very small, skinny version of you. Like,
yes.
Not to say that you're not skinny already, but
no, like tiny.
a tiny miniature you. And then you're like, yeah, I can teach you how to do all these things. And they're like, you don't know how to tie your shoes.
No, literally. That's how it was. So much imposter syndrome walking into those spaces. But my manager, like, she came up to me, my salon manager, she came up to me one day when I was 19, and she was like, I have this vision for you. Like, this is what you're going to do. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever.
Wow.
And I like always thought that like that's probably a space or thing that I would end up doing. But I definitely didn't think I was going to do it at that age, right? Common theme for like all the things that I've been doing up until this point.
Yeah.
And so I started going through L'Oreal Pro education training to be an educator. But then my salon like threw a huge curveball at us and completely changed our line to Euphora fully.
Wow.
And Euphora, when we got our intro color class and we got our intro to all the PK and things like that, they asked me to start applying for their education because to be an educator with them, because they like saw my passion for it when I was in the class, and they knew that I was already going through education training. So then I started with them. started teaching color, mostly regionally, and got a ton of facilitation experience. Obviously,
Cool.
the boot camp for education for them was extremely intense. I was so nervous, so anxious, super shaky. They put you in very like uncomfortable, challenging, but appropriate situations to
Okay.
prepare you for going and speaking in front of an audience.
Like what?
Like we had to come up with like our own presentations in front of like all of the other people who were the educators within the company.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I did it was the boot camp, so like everybody else was just as nervous as I was, but then like
Sure.
the second time it was like these educators who have been doing it for like years.
Oh boy.
And like were way better than I was and more experienced. And again, I'm like this child
Right.
like speaking to all these
You're like,
people.
I can't ride a car, but I can teach you how to put
it was
color on him.
actually inappropriate. And I mean, even then, like once I started actually going out into the field and teaching,
Yeah.
I did find that, that was a big challenge, was like getting these people who have had 30 years of experience, like listening to this little kid coming into the room.
Yeah.
But I think that, it was also a strength, because I think that particularly hairstylists who were 30 years in, who I look up to, who actually care about their education, who actually care about continuously learning and want to be ahead of the curve, right? They wanted to hear from somebody who is younger like me, who was like looking at the newest things and interested in the newest things.
Yeah.
And so, there were certain people who vibed with me and certain people who didn't.
Sure.
I was good at navigating those spaces. And again, I think that the brand education and my experience with that really set me up well for facilitating those types of spaces confidently.
Right.
And then opened up my own salon suite eventually. That freaking
So wait, how long were you in this? How long were you in the traditional salon?
So I was in a traditional salon model until I was like 22 or 23, I guess.
Okay. So
and then
like 4 years of experience under your belt.
Yeah, behind the chair. Yeah,
right.
If you don't include like me, like working in the salon as a general assistant when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So that much experience in a traditional salon, and then also brand educating as well. And then I had moved to a new area to live with this boy, and I'm like, if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking about moving for a boy, don't do it.
I moved to Philadelphia for a girl.
Yes.
That promptly fell apart. So I totally get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just do not do it. We'll never move for a man ever again. So I moved out to central Pennsylvania, like far into the rural part of PA. Oof. And had to build my clientele from scratch in this like commission salon. And the salon was amazing. Fantastic salon owner. Okay team. They were great, most of them. And it was a good experience, but I was still like in this very like rural space, and I felt a little bit out of place. But it was also a big struggle for me to rebuild. I was like this like young ambitious educator who really understood social media, like was super comfortable with it, knew what to post and all the things. And I found it to be a really big uphill battle. And I think that what I came to discover was just that like it's so important that the space that you're in is aligned with you and the type of experience that you're trying to create and the brand that you have and the people that you're targeting. Because I ended up opening up my own salon suite with like barely any clientele, which was wild. Would not recommend.
Terrifying.
Yeah, would not recommend. And I blew it up. I had 3.5 months booked solid, 5 new client requests a week.
How fast did that happen?
Like within like 3 months of me opening up my suite. Yeah, it was crazy.
So wait, before we get too far.
Yes.
Right? That transition period, right? When you're like, I'm in a commission salon, they're fine. I need to go do my own thing. Where did that confidence, obviously you've been an educator, right? So you're seeing a lot of different, I would assume different salon concepts, maybe even different suites concepts across the country where people are coming to you for education, for classes and things like that. At what point were you like, all right, I think I'm going to do my own thing instead of go to a different salon, right? Because those seemed like the next logical options would be, all right, this place is fine. Can I go to somewhere else, or do I do my own thing?
Yeah.
The Beyond the Suite podcast is presented by the Salon Hub and the Salon Hub Salon Marketing 101 course. The Salon Hub Marketing 101 course is designed to teach you the building blocks of marketing that you can apply to your salon business so you can get more clients in your chair in less time. So if you haven't taken a marketing class before, this is a great place to start. To join, all you have to do is go to learning.thesalonhub.social to get started today.
So I had like, when I was like building my clientele within that like salon, within the team salon that I was in, I got really obsessed with like the business side of things. I already was obsessed with the business side of things. Like being within the brand education, you really drink the Kool-Aid, right? And they really condition you to learn how to sell the products. And I loved it. I was obsessed with learning sales. Like I loved the challenge of like seeing how much I could sell in a day to like raise my average ticket. And I knew how to offer a really excellent client experience with that as well. And so I was obsessed with the business side of things already. But what I definitely was missing from my acumen was like intentional marketing, like actual like strategic marketing, like not just posting and praying, but like actual posting with intention and understanding. And so while it was kind of like, if you come to see me, you're staying with me, and I will sell a bunch of retail and add-ons, and I will make a ton of money off of one person. But I need to actually get people into the door. Right. And that's, I think, a lot of hairstylists now just struggle with marketing, and they feel really comfortable in their skills. They feel like they can really give somebody a really great experience, but getting the leads, getting the awareness is the most difficult part.
I always say this, and it's always, I get the same thing. It's like, Steve, I can balayage with the best of them.
Right.
I can make nails that look like cruise ships.
Yes.
Right. I have no idea how to get someone in my chair.
Right.
And it's like, that's step one.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to get to you could be great at step 5, but you have to at least be passable at step 1 before you start
totally
kind of going down that path, because then you're just going to be slamming your head against the wall the entire time.
Right.
So as you transferred from, like, okay, you weren't doing it, you weren't posting with intention, as you mentioned, right? What clicked for you when you're like, if I do it this way, this will actually shift the way that people are seeing me or seeing my brand, and they're going to want to act?
Yeah. So because I was struggling to build the clientele, I just started seeking out education, like podcasts within the industry, outside of the industry, started reading books, like Building a Story Brand with Donald Miller, which is like a classic.
Huge fan.
Yeah, very much so. And just started to really understand like the marketing acumen of things. Again, like I was really obsessed with the sales part of things, but that's what I was really missing. So I like took that natural passion that I had for that and kind of started to focus it into that area. And instead of it being like handed to me from the brand I was working with, like I had to kind of just seek it out myself. And once I started to learn like actual marketing fundamentals of just like having a brand, having a demographic and market that I would target, and also like specializing and like niching down into like, and being really forward facing as like a balayage specialist or like a low maintenance color specialist, I truly felt like I was equipped with the knowledge to be able to make cool shit happen for myself. Like that gave me the confidence. Like education and knowledge will always destroy fear, like no matter what. And although like the fear was still there, like I was terrified when I was opening up my
reduce fear. Eliminating fear is a whole nother
impossible
thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
unless you're psychotic.
Exactly. Very much so. So, I mean, but it really is, it was, now looking back and just having this conversation and speaking out loud, I think truly like if I did not have that education, I would never have the confidence to do that at all. But because I was so confident in what I had learned, I was so passionate about the business side of things and what I had learned, I genuinely like just had this gut feeling, and also the logic that like if I had my own space that I was in full control of, if I was in full control of the guest experience, not just in the chair but also before they come into the door, after they come in, if I had the right space to be able to take the pictures and the videos that I want to take, then I think I could make this work. And it was like 3 weeks before quarantine lifted in Pennsylvania, and I just like last minute decided to open up a suite. And I was like, I texted the land.
What a time.
I know. Crazy. I texted the manager of the Sola because I had like inquired before, just because I was like, oh yeah, that's my 5-year vision.
Like, I'll do this eventually.
Yeah. I was like, I want to figure out like how much this is going to cost, so that way in 5 years when I'm ready, I'll do it. And I was already in communication with her, texted her. I was like, hey, I want to do this in 3 weeks. Do you think that's possible? Like I want to be open when quarantine lifted. And we made it happen. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, dude. And I hustled. Like I worked my ass off.
I was gonna say, so these are my real detailed questions, because I think you're a great person to ask. When you go from, okay, I am a person that works behind the chair in a team salon, to I am the brand
The brand is me.
Yep.
I provide the service. I have to come up with all of these points of operation that you can lean on from previous experience for sure, but it is up to you now to define them.
Totally.
What were the big steps that you took to make sure that, like, by the time you open up in 3 weeks, right, you're at least functioning?
Yeah.
Right? Because like there's so many small steps that count.
Totally.
Right? From how they book with you, what provider are you gonna and platform are you gonna use for that?
Yep.
To are you gonna text them beforehand? Are you sending reminders? What's the service even gonna entail other than the actual like timing that you hopefully understand at this point? Right? There's so many extra little things. So like, what were those bigger steps that you're like, okay, I knew that I wanted to do X, Y, or Z, and so I had to make these other things happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, before we started recording, you and I were talking about how I believe that at least that like a lot of the newer people within the industry, like don't put enough time in before they like want to go off and do their own thing and be independent. And I think truly like my experience being in those team salons that were, you know, also business oriented. They actually cared. They were really offering a great client experience. I think really set me up for success with being very comfortable, confident, and understanding the fundamentals of what I needed to offer a great experience from the get.
Sure.
But then my own love for technology really brought that to the next level. I had been playing around like on Wix since I was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
My dad is a software engineer, and
Cool.
so I just come from like a nerdy family and like a nerdy background with that kind of stuff. And I had like a laptop in my lap since I was like 5. So I really love technology. Like I thought it was fun. I like thought it was super interesting. I had the privilege of also growing up, you know, with my age where it feels much more comfortable and natural for me as well.
Sure.
And so getting on board with like a booking system and getting set up with that felt really intuitive for me. And then also setting up my own website felt pretty intuitive for me. Setting up all those front end things on the back end, those systems, right, to support me in managing the massive influx that was going to come was so important. And that was really the start of it all was and I think honestly, the most important thing was really making sure that setting up that experience, the pre-visit experience, right?
Yeah.
To be ready to open up was absolutely essential. And the thing is like the beautiful opportunity that people have with technology is that like for such a low cost, you can offer these like really excellent experiences that are beyond the chair and in the chair as well. And you don't have to like start up a salon suite with all the coolest amenities and all the like beautiful furniture and decorations when you can like create really awesome experiences in this different way. That's not tangible, 100%. But can be super impactful at the same time.
Things like I mean, we were talking again a little bit before this, right? But I've been saying this to people for a long time. Like you have an opportunity to set up an experience for people well ahead of them showing up to your door.
Yes.
And there are automations that you can build so that it's just done for you.
Yes.
Right. Even from a text message warning, like, hey, so stoked that you're coming in.
Right.
Make sure, like, if you want to get your photo taken, right, I would love to do that.
Yes.
Here are some things that I'd recommend, right? Or like come photo ready or prepare to be photo ready. Just like prepping people so that you can collect content that's worth actually what you want to do.
Totally.
And you don't have this experience where they're like, oh, they're going to take my photo. I knew that they didn't say anything, but I knew it was going to happen. And now I'm not ready. And now I don't want to. And there's apprehension. It's like, listen, right?
Yes.
You're coming in. I'm going to do this great thing for you. I'm so excited to work with you. I'm proud of my work. I want to show it off.
Yes.
Prepping that conversation ahead of time can make all of the difference.
Absolutely.
Because then their mind space is ready for it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Setting those expectations up front. And I think there's so much power in non-confrontational communication.
Yes.
I think that oftentimes we like don't recognize how intimidating it can be when you're asking a client just any question and they're in the moment and they are already in a space that doesn't feel crazy comfortable for them, especially if it's their first time or if they have salon trauma before, and they'll just tell you whatever sometimes
you want to hear.
Yeah, you want to hear. They think that you want to hear, or they'll tell you just something that's off their head and they're just acting out of anxiety. And also too, I think on the flip side, right? Like we as service providers, we deal with a lot of anxiety when it comes to that type of conversation, with plenty of things, when it comes to like price increases, when it comes to giving somebody a quote, when it comes to telling somebody, hey, I actually don't work on Saturdays, so I can't get you in on a Saturday. I'm really sorry to disappoint. Or, hey, I like would really like to take your picture. Are you cool with that? Like that can be really nerve-wracking for a hairstylist to do.
100%.
And so to be able to communicate those types of things ahead of time and also do it in the way that you intended to do it, because I know that sometimes I'll be in like really anxious situations and I won't say the things that I really would like to say that would have been conducive to the most positive outcome possible, because I'm in the moment and I'm facing somebody eye to eye, and it just feels really anxiety ridden, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh, we didn't have the best conversation today, but I really want to take your photo. And now I really don't know how to ask this question.
Exactly.
Whereas like if you come up to it up front and you're like, hey, just so you know, part of the process is I will be taking and collecting content during and throughout. If you are not okay with that, you need to let me know now.
Yes.
And then that way we can either set up something where your face isn't going to be in something at the end.
Right.
Because I still do really need this content. It is really pivotal to my business. And they can be like, yes, no, blah, blah, blah. You can have that conversation up front.
Right.
But at least you have the opportunity to set that expectation. So that way, when they come in, they're just, okay, this will happen eventually.
Yes.
But then also educating them when they come in the door. Hey, here's where the trigger points are.
Absolutely.
For when we're going to start taking photos or I'm going to collect anything. I'm also going to ask you if there's anything in between.
Right.
So that you're comfortable. And then they're like, great, I can now let my guard down. I don't have to kind of fake smile at all times thinking that there's a camera next to me.
Right.
Forever capturing my visage, right? Like,
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So like having that non-confrontational thing up front, really, like you said, beautifully, just like makes everything else so much smoother and easier. So yeah, setting up that pre-visit experience, I think, was one of my biggest first steps that definitely set me up for a lot of success and was a big reason why I blew up so quickly and why I got really beautiful organic referrals on top of my social media referrals, and also why I got people to come back and why I was able to raise my prices a ton and people still wanted to pay it.
Yeah.
But eventually, that big demand and the amount of work that I was doing, although I was leaning into technology, it still didn't feel as sustainable as it could be. I got to a point where I was like, I am working so hard, and yes, I am making great money, and I'm, living the dream life of being booked and busy and booked solid and getting the new clients, but it comes with a whole new set of problems, like truly. Like, there's two phases, I truly believe, like, of struggle when it comes with the hairstylist journey of growth. And the first struggle is, growing the clientele, but then the second struggle is actually scaling that success and making it sustainable once you've actually gotten to that place. And so that what kind of brings me to the next part of my story, but I'll pause just in case.
The one thing I did want to ask you before we move to the next step is, as you started out, right? Obviously you've mentioned that you focused on the way that you're marketing, right? And the social media. What was the split, if you had to kind of just put a rough number to it, between new clients you were getting off of, let's say, Instagram at the time, right? And natural referrals, word of mouth?
I'd probably say 75% was social media.
Really?
And then I mean, when I tell people that I built my clientele on social, I am not playing. And then 25% was organic, just word of mouth. But I mean, you could also say that some of it was both, because there was definitely like crossover. Like, I would have clients who would post on their own stories, right? And then they would shout me out, or they would just literally post pictures of themselves, and people would send them a DM and be like, oh my God, who's doing your hair? It looks so good. And that's how I got a lot of my clients. And I think that local network marketing is super important, and 100%. Being really intentional for who you're targeting and sometimes who you're getting into the chair. Like, for example, I had this local photographer who was huge in our local area for shooting a lot of weddings. Okay. And I just started following her on Instagram. I just started to like her stuff and just like comment on her stuff and like create this like, virtual relationship with her online. And she eventually, we swapped services. So she did branding photo shoot for me, and then I did her hair. And then she started posting on her Instagram story, where she has this huge local audience of people who are like my perfect target market. Right. And then just from her posting one story, sent me like tons of referrals. And I think it goes to show that like your referrals are literally like sitting in your chair right now. Like your biggest sources of being able to get those people are in your chair. And I think when we think about word of mouth, I think we think very traditional. Like we think about the old school, like, oh, ask all of your friends and family to come see me, instead of incentivizing them to post on social where they can literally reach like a like 10 times that size of an audience, and particularly an audience that is mostly regional as well too,
and that are most like them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's what we always talk about in our coaching sessions is you have a treasure trove of information on your target market sitting in your chair, and they cannot move.
Yes. Literally.
They cannot move.
They have no choice.
They have no choice. You can ask them whatever you want. They can choose not to answer.
Right.
But everyone loves to have conversation. So it's like, where do you go?
Yes.
What do you like to do? What are you and your friends doing this weekend? And then taking this data down of like, okay, maybe I should show up here, 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 and here.
Yes.
Right. Or, okay, you seem like you're pretty big on social. Like I've checked out your whole like Instagram profile and all of that. You're very active. People are very active with you. Let's figure out something more fun that we can do in the meantime so that this actually pops off and grabs attention more than just here are some results photos.
Totally.
Right.
And I love that you talked about data-driven research to be able to know what actions to take as well.
Right.
I'm really big on data-driven decisions. Like the more data that you can get to support you in the decisions that you're making and the actions that you take, so it is more intentional, the better. And I think that oftentimes, you know, especially within our industry, I think a lot of the industry is becoming more privy to the fact that like niching down and having like a target market or an ideal client is something that can be a really strong marketing strategy, as it's been historically proven across all industries.
Correct.
However, I think what is missing from that conversation a lot is taking into consideration like real people and like real circumstances. Like people will come up with like a dream client profile, but it's not really based on actual circumstances and people.
Correct. It's like, okay, well then how many of them exist within a 10-mile radius
exactly
of you, right? It could be like, yo, I'm really into this specific scene goth niche and I do vivids and it's awesome and I only do that. And you're like in the middle of Wyoming, right? And you're like, maybe that's not the best spot for you to be. Right. And data will tell you that.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's really important. I think you're absolutely right. That's not, it's the full story that you need, right? Not just what you want. It's also what is needed in the market.
Exactly.
So you have to match that. Okay. So you've started your salon suite. It is going absurdly well. And then obviously for those who know Hunter, you are doing more than just hair these days. So talk me through the transition from going behind the chair most of your time to now not behind the chair most of the time, right? You're transitioning, or you have transitioned into something much more in terms of education and influence and the like. I would love to hear when this kind of thought and idea came about. And then what steps did you take to kind of act on that to expand what you're able to do with your day-to-day that doesn't involve service?
So the journey has really started still behind the chair and with the advancements that I was making behind the chair. So like I shared a little bit, was, you know, again, living the dream that everybody thinks that's amazing, but truly like it's just the first step of like actually achieving work-life balance and like actually reaping the benefits of what you've put so much hard work into behind the chair. And I just got to a point where like I had all these clients, all these requests. I was doing these price increases, did not decrease the demand on my time. And it just felt so overwhelming. Like I felt like I was on my phone 24/7, always rescheduling, answering inquiries, like dealing with, and then also, you know, being consistent with my social media marketing efforts, and then being consistent with ordering inventory, just keeping the suite clean. There's so many responsibilities that you have. And then also being a business owner, you know, taxes and bookkeeping. It is just so much. And again, although I was making great money, money does not equal happiness.
Right.
It truly does not. And
once your base needs are met, there's a whole lot of extra things that need to get taken care of before happiness can come out of that equation.
Right. And so like I had a lot of money, but like I did not have a lot of time. And at the time I was in my relationship, and I, had like crazy family stuff going on, and it just felt so unsustainable. I kind of got to a point where I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like, everybody's telling me that I'm so successful and they're so happy for me. And so like I would tell my clients how busy I was. Like they would ask me like, oh, how are you doing? Are you busy? And I'm like, yeah, I'm wildly busy. It is overwhelming. I'm coming in early. I'm staying late. I'm coming in on my days off. Like I am working so hard. And it's so crazy how like that is so celebrated, especially at the time. I think that over time we've all of us have kind of, come to furthermore understand the importance of work-life balance. But especially at the time, everybody's like, oh my God, that's great. Like you're so solidly booked. Like that's fantastic. Well, meanwhile, I'm like suffering and I don't have any wealth in my life, So I was just like, I know something needs to change.
Right.
Like I can't just keep going on like this. Like, and so what I ended up doing was leaning even heavier into my love for technology. And also getting really strong with my own personal boundaries around work, and using the technology to support me in those boundaries. So for example, like I had online booking before, like I shared, like I had it set up, it was there, it could be used, but I didn't really use it as a fundamental way that I do business as much as I do now, and as much as I coach to now.
Sure.
Like in today's day and age, and at the time, I made the pivot to you can only book with me online. Like it's great. You cannot schedule through me. And that even includes behind the chair as well. Like you cannot schedule through me. I'm not going to be the one who schedules your appointment. It's going to be the online booking, because my online booking is only going to show you the days and times I'm available, right? Where I have the option of booking somebody whenever I want to. And that means like, especially if I'm in person with them, I'm like looking at Anne in the eyes, and I just finished her 3-hour balayage appointment and we had so much fun and her hair looks amazing and I love her so much. And she has like a wedding that she has to get ready, that she has to look beautiful for. So I'm like, okay, like I'll come in like late on a Friday, right? And this is actually like a real thing that happens. So Anne, I put her into the end of my Friday. I had already worked like a 5-day work week, and it ended up being like a 12-hour day for me. And she was my last client, and I was just doing like a pretty golden balayage on her. I put her toner on, and as the toner was processing, I was like, oh, this like does not look right. Like this does not look good. No. And it was turning purple. And like, she's not a purple type of girl. Like we're trying to keep this like natural and pretty.
I was like, based on her previous service, I would have guessed not.
Yeah. So it started turning purple, and I go back over to, my scale, and I have my color tube out still, and I picked up an 8 violet instead of an 8 gold. So it was an 8-2 versus an 8-3 because we used numbers with the color line that I used. And so I was able to fix it. It was fine. Like I turned it around. It was okay. Thank God I like was a color educator and I knew how to fix that at the time.
You're like, okay, color wheel, I have to go opposite.
Yes. Yeah, right. Very much color wheel, very much opposite. Yes. And it actually was a really big wake up call for me. Yeah. I thought that me squeezing in Anne was me doing a favor for her, right? Like it was me taking really good care of her. It was me appreciating her for her loyalty. But at the end of the day, it was actually doing a huge disservice to her and myself and my family and my friends, because I had no time for them, and I'm screwing up her service.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the most part, you're also really giving parts of you that you didn't realize you couldn't give away because you were empty.
Exactly.
Right? That's when that stuff happens.
Totally. So that was a really big turning point for me, where I was like, something needs to change. So the online booking became that's me now. Like that's the receptionist. That's who you go through. You can't get an appointment through me. And so that's just one example of like a system that I had in place that really protected me and held me accountable to my boundaries, because I can't always rely on myself to stay strong in those things.
Yeah. I mean, the booking system doesn't have feelings.
Right? Exactly.
It can't feel for your clientele. It's like, no, I really need it. And it's like, these are the options, right? You can book this, or this. That is it, right? And it makes you have boundaries, right? Because you're going to set them and it's going to enforce them for you. There's no human error.
Right.
Now, there's also what I think we're getting to, right, is where you're hiring also to kind of fill in that gap. But creating these boundaries ahead of time so that they know where the boundaries are that can be enforced. So that way it's not up to you, it's up to them.
Yep.
to shield your time, because shielding your own time can be very, very challenging.
So hard.
Especially when you're someone that has empathy
Yeah.
and you feel for others,
Yep.
and you're in a service business. So you would like to provide a great service and a great experience. And that is your
Absolutely.
primary goal. Sometimes the primary goal of you taking care of yourself is lower than a lot of that. So other people are like, well, I got to take care of him. So that is my job. Right. And that's really interesting. So why don't you take us through that part?
Yeah. So the other thing I noticed too, was like, if I'm going to be doing this online booking situation, I'm going to be like forcing my clients to go through it. It has to be a good experience for them. And also it can't be something that like messes up my schedule.
Right.
I find a lot of hairstylists are so scared about online booking or would never use it in the same way that I coach to using it, or that I found really a lot of success in using it, because they're so scared of giving up control of their schedule. They're so scared of people going on there and messing it up themselves. So then I also like did a lot of research and testing with my own clients about how can I create this experience that they'll be able to take care of things themselves as well, confidently, accurately. And that didn't just go for booking, that also came for like, getting their own questions answered, rescheduling themselves, getting on a wait list if they did not have, if I didn't have availability that they were looking for. Right. And so I explored a lot about how to create that user experience so that way there was the least amount of error and that experience was amazing. And I was able to do it. And so eventually a thing called Clubhouse came around. I think we talked about this before. And it was such an interesting time because it was for us, it was well past quarantine in Pennsylvania, and I had done all the things with my suite up until that point. But there was a lot of California, was shut down for so long, and there was a lot of people who just still weren't even back to work, and a lot of people who were just like really isolated from the pandemic and did not have a lot of interaction with others. And on Clubhouse, our industry in like a small little niche way really came together, especially like a lot of big players. Like Eric Vaughn, and Mary from Behind the Chair, and like all these people just like came onto Clubhouse and created these big rooms, and we had all these really cool conversations, and I was like obsessed with it. Like I loved that. Like I found this big community of all these other people who are just as passionate and motivated and interested in the business side of things in the business as much as I was. And then I started sharing my own strategies and my own experiences. And I didn't necessarily realize like what I was doing was like so needed and so unique and something that other people couldn't really figure out themselves. And I really found like I built like a pretty fair following on there for what it was. And I made some really great connections with people that I'm really great friends with to this day that I never probably would have before, like Nina Tullio and Jay Ladner. Like they're really good friends of mine now. And I eventually thought that, the best way for me to teach other people this information was probably through a digital course, particularly because I'd be teaching a lot of technology. A lot of my
build once, sell multiple times, again, protecting your time.
Yeah, 100%. It had to be sustainable for sure. I was still educating for the brand, right? So that kept me busy on my days off, right? I was actually working as well. And I luckily, right? And I tell people this all the time, like before they start to scale into whatever else or start a new endeavor, I say your current endeavor right now should be as scaled and systematized and easy as possible. Because if you're going into whatever new thing that you're going into and you don't have the time and energy that it deserves, then it's never going to grow. You're not going to be able to you're not going to have enough water in the can to be able to pour into it for it to actually be successful.
That's very smart.
So like I found like with my own suite business, right? Like I had done that. Like I had to figure those things out. I pivoted before Clubhouse like became a thing, and I just kind of incidentally and coincidentally, like everything kind of fell into place at the right time because I truly like had figured out my behind the chair business. I even hired a social media manager eventually. So like my time was super scaled, and I was able to focus a lot on, building this digital course and really pouring into the community that I found and sharing what I knew. And people miraculously bought the course when I put it out. I could not believe, I literally remember like the day before I launched it, I literally remember like turning over to my partner at night and being like, if just like 10 people enroll in this course, like that would be so awesome that I could like make an impact in their lives. Like that would be unimaginable to me. And 84 people enrolled.
Wow.
Which was like which was it's just wild.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the feeling because we released ours and I was like, if one person buys this,
right,
I will deem this a success.
literally.
And we were like, oh,
yes,
great. Right. And you're like, it is super fulfilling because it gives you a little bit of that validation of like, what I'm doing is actually needed.
Absolutely.
What I'm doing means something to someone.
Yes.
Right. Regardless of whatever price point you put it at, someone's willing to take their time and their effort to learn what you have to teach. And I think that is so impactful because it says so much about you, right? In the way that you're delivering your message and how you're going about doing it.
Yeah.
And obviously you have repeat business, I would assume by now, because you're
Yes.
still doing it.
Yeah.
Right. What year are we in, by the way? We're in 2020.
2021? Yeah.
Okay.
2021.
When you launched your first course?
Yeah. So it's been for 3 years, not a crazy amount of time, but it simultaneously feels like it's been like so quick and there hasn't been much time. And then there's been so much time and there's so much experience with it because we've done so much. Like me and the team, oh my God, we have done so much and we have accomplished really crazy things. Like truly, it's so wild what we've been able to do over the past 3 years. And I mean, even just in the beginning, right? Like, so I sold that course, we had 84 people. And then, then I actually had to like fulfill the course, which was wild.
Yeah.
And again, another experience where I was like, thank God my behind the chair business has scaled because damn, it took a lot of time and effort. I mean, I sacrificed so much time to be able to make that work. And I could not imagine if I had not made the pivots in my original business, I literally wouldn't be able to do it. And that first cohort went magically well. It was
amazing,
crazy. The feedback we got, the results that those students got, the innovative strategies that they put into place that like nobody else in their area or even in the industry were doing at the time. Even to this day, like what we teach, I can confidently say like there is nobody else teaching what we teach. Like
it's great.
It truly is something so special. And then the next cohort we had, I think we signed up like 150 or like 170 or something like that.
Doubled.
Yeah. And it just freaking snowballed from there. And we just grew so quickly to the point where I needed to hire like more than just like one virtual assistant.
Right.
I like needed,
you don't need
like,
an admin, you need a team.
No, literally, like I needed a team. And so like within a year of me opening up my first course, releasing the course for the first time, I had 3 hires. I had a executive assistant, I had a marketing manager, and then I had somebody who helped us with IT and things like that. Which was also kind of difficult for me to give up.
Yeah, right. I was like, as a technologist yourself, right? You're like, do I need someone else to do this? And you're like, yes, you are not getting paid to do the technical things anymore.
Exactly.
Right? You're there to share your knowledge and create the course and strategize. And listen, I got the same stuff, right? Where I'm like, oh, I'll just figure out how to make all these monitors get fixed, or like how to position this thing, or like I'm going to automate this over here. And I'm like, no. You have a team for this now.
Exactly.
You can tell someone to do this.
Yep.
You can give up control, which I think is really the biggest thing, right? Whether you're giving it up to technology or someone else, it is that giving up of control, because really control takes time.
Absolutely.
And that's what we don't have a lot of.
No.
And that's what you've been preaching this entire time, right? Is like, take your time back, give up control in certain aspects in incremental ways.
Yes.
So that eventually you can reach this balance of profitability and time, because that, I think, to your point, is what you're alluding to, is where your happiness resides.
Absolutely.
Right on that other side of that balance.
Yeah. What are we working so hard for? What are you working so hard for? Because like if you're working your ass off and you have no time, and great, you might make some money. Like, okay, what is all that money doing for you?
You're like, eventually I'll have time to go spend it. And you're like,
right.
Okay, when your knees hurt and your back doesn't work.
Exactly.
And like you have arthritis everywhere.
Right.
And then you're on a beach and you're like, man, I would love to go throw a Frisbee. And you're like, I don't think I can right now. Right. What's the point?
Life is ridiculously short. It's wildly short. And again, I feel very privileged to have had these experiences, these lessons up until this point, being in my 20s, right? And I mean, even being in my 20s, maybe there's a lot of people who would say like, oh, this is your time to work your ass off and like build it all up and whatever. And I was just like, well, how many people in their 20s can say that they were able to do what I've been able to do.
Right.
And I think that in 10, 20 years, I'll look back and I won't regret that,
No, not at all.
How many people do you hear who are like 50 plus who will always like say like, oh, I wish that I spent more time doing fun things with friends and with my loved ones.
I wish I could have gone and done this when I was younger and could have gotten the most out of it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You're living the dream actively, which is great.
Beyond the Suite podcast is brought to you by the Salon Hub and their new web design service offering. If you are still using your booking software as your primary website, it might be time to switch it up. While booking services are great at keeping your appointments streamlined, they don't allow you to truly show off your brand in a unique way. We here at the Salon Hub are trying to change all that. We are now offering customized 3-page websites to help you make sure that your digital home is on brand and effective. We can integrate with any booking system you have, so you don't have to change your internal processes, and we make sure that your website reflects the vision and work you put into your salon brand. Plus, we are making these websites affordable. To get more information, please visit us at thesalonhub.social, and we'll get you started.
So before we kind of wrap up, kind of want to hear about the state of the business. Now, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
And then I got one last question for you.
Okay.
And we'll close out.
Yeah. So the state of the business now, we're still running the same course. It's something that and again, like whenever I have these interviews and like I talk about what we did and what we have going on, when I was in it, when I was creating it, I just didn't realize what I was doing sometimes. I didn't realize like what I was creating. And now I'm here and I look back at all the steps that I took and I was like, there definitely was intention, but then there's some things that I wasn't even thinking about that like set me up for so much success. Right. And that's why I think the sentiment, I think we hear it all the time. I think the sentiment of just just start, like just do it sometimes is so important. And also understanding that the majority of CEOs out there, the majority of businesses out there have no idea what the hell they're doing and they're making it up as they go along.
Yes.
Of course, with as much strategy with as much educated decisions and evidence as much as possible. But at the end of the day, like sometimes things can't just be perfect. You just have to freaking do them and see what happens. And so a lot of that stuff has brought me to where I am today, and just seeing how the course has grown and how it's still our signature main baby. And it's like our entryway into like really coming into our world and like really seeing like what is possible for hairstylists if they're willing to adapt and if they're willing to take on the innovative technology and strategies that we're doing. So we have the course that we're still doing. We have an alumni only program mastermind. So they can come in and they get more advanced strategies. And we have like really high touch personal support. We have group coaching calls. We have in-person events as well. And then I'm the host of the Modern Hairstylist podcast.
Yeah.
That's been a really cool journey up until this point. We have just under 200,000 downloads at this point. We've been open for we've had it for like 2 years now. We're in like 70 different countries. It's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's been a beautiful journey with that. And then I have a beautiful team who I think I have a team of like 6 or 7. And I could not do it without them. Truly. They are just absolutely excellent. They are so bought into the culture and the mission of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if it was not for them, like we would not be where we are, and I would not be able to make the impact that we're making. And at the end of the day, it all goes back to the why. It all goes back to the impact. And I think that's like the only thing that is like the most important thing that is like keeping us going and keeping us all so motivated to like keep kicking ass and like keep like spreading the message as much as we can. And it's been a really beautiful journey. And so it's only up from here, and I'm just riding it and doing the damn thing.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on your success.
Thank you so much.
It's been amazing to watch from afar, even for as long as we have.
Thank you.
So my last question for you is a simple question with a complicated answer.
Oh God. Okay.
Could be complicated, maybe not, right? So we always kind of end with this question, and it's about people that are just starting out or hitting a plateau, right? You know, you've obviously found a different gear of success, I would say, more than just a level, right? You've gone through the entire process from, you know, being 19 in a salon and an educator, right? Well, before that, being 16 as an assistant, right? And then coming up, that was 10 years ago, right? In the last 10 years, you've gone through all these stages of being in the beauty industry as a career. For someone who's just starting out, maybe they're not 16, but they are going out and creating that first salon suite experience for themselves. They're thinking about going out and creating their first business, or they're in their business and they're plateauing and they just need something to change or to flip. What are you saying to these folks most often? Because I'm sure you have these conversations with folks a lot of the time in the position that you are, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is like the most important thing starting out, and then the most important thing to kind of get out of a rut?
Okay, so like for starting out, I know kind of sounds like it's kind of sounds contrary to all that I teach and preach sometimes, but I will like always say still that like there is value in short-term sacrifice for long-term gain.
Mm-hmm.
There is still value in that. And there's ways that you can do it in a little bit more of a sustainable way. But I mean, if it wasn't for me first being in that phase of like getting to the burnout, putting in my time to get there. If it wasn't for me doing that, I wouldn't be where I am today. Right. And so like, it's worth you putting in the extra work. It's worth you not making a crazy amount of money in the beginning. It's worth you showing up even when you don't feel like it. Yeah. And it's also worth you expecting and being willing to take failures and have failures, because those lessons that you learn from that along the way are so massively important and essential for your long-term success.
100%.
There is never going to be a space and time where you have a goal, where you have a dream, or you have a business that everything feels super easy. Everything is absolutely perfect. There is always going to be another challenge. The world is going to change. Your market is going to change. Your circumstances will change, and you will not get the same results every single time you do the same thing over and over and over. And it's just a part of what you signed up for, you know. It's just a part of the journey, and embracing the journey, giving it acceptance, and learning how to reflect on every step of that journey and learn from those experiences instead of letting them set you back or making you feel like you just have to give up. Is so important. So put in the short-term sacrifice, be willing to fail, be willing to push through the hard times, because if you don't have those, you won't be prepared for the success that is inevitable for you if you 100%. Keep going.
No, I totally agree. It is one of those where there is no replacement for experience.
Right.
But then there's also, when you don't fail, you've lost opportunities to learn.
Absolutely.
And learn hard lessons, because no one learns hard lessons by choice.
Right.
Right. You try to, but you're going to take the easy way out if it shows up. Right. Unless you've done things where you put yourself in positions where if failure is an option in front of you and that happens, you're going to learn from it. And it's one of those, as an entrepreneur, I always say, the only way you fail is if you quit. Yes. Truly. So you may see something as a failure, but really it's a hurdle. Absolutely. Or a dead end in the maze, but that doesn't mean you failed the maze. Right? You can always go backwards.
Absolutely.
And maybe not backwards, but sideways. You can change directions at any point to make it to that end state.
Right.
So someone who's in a rut, though, what would you say for them?
Honestly, a little bit of the same sentiment, but instead of saying like saying just like you may fail or whatever it may be, this is also a part of the journey.
Yeah.
The rut is also a part of the journey. The burnout is also a part of the journey. The not always feeling like you feel like showing up is a part of the journey. Like, it just is what it is. And again, there's never going to be a time and space where the business feels super aligned and everything feels good and like it feels fresh and new, particularly for my neurodivergent people out there. Like, I have ADHD, and it's really difficult for my brain to consistently produce dopamine when there's like kind of like the same status quo, you know? If I don't have something brand new and fresh and exciting to focus on, then it's really difficult for me to focus on it. Right.
100%.
And I mean, and that's what really led me to the industry in the first place. I was like, I need to find something that's like really invigorating and motivating for me. And now what I find to keep me going is two things. Number one is I focus on how can I find joy and fulfillment within my personal life and not my business. Great. Because that is so massively important, particularly when you get to this space where you have kind of scaled success, and scaled success is oftentimes extremely boring. Yeah. It's getting to a point where like it's not the fun, sexy stuff anymore. It's actually like the really like now I'm dealing with like HR and like hiring and like taxes and like all and like financial projections and budget. It genuinely is so boring, right? But because I take that success and I've really worked on pouring into my personal development and reaping the benefits of what I've worked so hard for. That keeps me motivated to keep going within the business, because I know that it it fuels that personal development, right? So it's worth it for me to
It's
show
no
up.
longer compromising the personal development because you have
Exactly.
time to do it, right?
Yes. And I'm also not relying on my business to bring me fulfillment anymore, right? Like,
huge.
your business is not here to entertain you. Like, it's here to provide you wealth, right?
Yes.
There's a purpose for your business, and it's not to entertain you. I think it's a little bit, I call it like, it's kind of like a toxic relationship, because your business, again, it's going to be ups and downs the entire time. And so if you allow your business to bring you through the ups and downs, then you personally are going to go through that as well. And I just don't think it should be that way, right? Oh, yeah. The other thing that if you're in a rut and you are having a really difficult time showing up for yourself, and you need a reason to like keep going and get up and get the work done, is, I know it's corny, I know we all talk about it, I know it's in theory, everybody knows this already, but it truly, really is so important. And that is just like really understanding and leaning into your why, for why you're in that space, right? Why you're doing what you're doing. And also taking some time to truly meditate on the gratitude that you have for the people that you show up for, and recognize the impact that you're making in their lives. As even, if I'm talking to a hairstylist who's like, I just want to be a hairstylist and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, you do not understand. We do not take enough time to truly recognize the power of what you do every single day. Oh yeah. Like, you are a trendsetter. You are a game changer in your community. You're providing safe spaces to people that they otherwise would not have. You are making people feel validated in who they are on the outside. And that is such a big deal for so many people. Yeah. And like, the power that you have is so huge. And like, you took the route, you were smart enough and powerful, courageous enough to take the route that everybody told you that you'd be poor doing, or like that society looks at as something that's like lesser than like a traditional college education route, right? Yeah. Like, you took that big step, and like, there's so much power in that. Like, don't take that for granted. Like, the fact that you get to get up and do that every day for a living, the fact that you get to be an artist, the fact that you get to make people feel beautiful inside and out and provide those spaces, that is such a privilege, and don't take that for granted. So like, get your ass out of bed, edit the social media content, and post that shit, because like, you deserve that, and your clients deserve that, and the world and the community deserves that from you.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Conduits of transformation, right? That's all it is. Yeah. Well, Hunter, thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you.
Being on the podcast and sharing all your knowledge and your story. It's been a delight to listen to.
Thank you. Thank you for being such a great facilitator. It's been so cool to do this in person.
I know, it was so great. Cool. Ugh, the personal vibe just makes it. All right, y'all. Well, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Sweet podcast.
Thank you.